Welcome to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast, where we talk all things Panther City Lacrosse Club. Now here are your hosts, Nicholas and Andy.
Well, Panther City looked to start off the new year on the right foot as they headed to Georgia to take on the Swarm. Welcome everyone to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I'm Nicholas, of course, joined by Andy.
Hello.
Andy, Happy New Year. We are officially in 2024, and I hope you had a good New Year's and all.
Yeah, it was pretty good. The wife was sick, so I ended up spending some time with the family without her. But other than that, she's feeling better now. So
yeah,
off to a solid start.
That's good. I hate to say, but unfortunately, there's been a lot of stuff going around.
Oh yeah,
this winter for especially us here in Texas. It just seems like there's a lot of just weird sickness or quick bugs or stuff like that going on. I mean, even myself, earlier when the season first started, had a few things, but glad to hear everything's getting better there. Yeah, no, even here, like I took it very easy. I can't remember the last time I actually made it to midnight on New Year's. So, it's a very easy night and very easy going. So, but hey, we made it to 2024. So now we're on the, I wouldn't necessarily call it the second half of the season because the majority of the season is in this year, but it's a good break, going from one year to the next in the end of the lacrosse season. I mean, we had that bye week to kind of improve, coming off that tough loss.
Yeah, it definitely did. And I'd say there were things that you could tell the team cleaned up, and not just Panther City, but other teams that we'll get into. So.
Oh yeah. And so, I mean, even talking about Panther City, they came into this game, a close overtime loss against Vegas a few weeks ago, a tough game against Toronto. Meanwhile, Georgia's kind of doing the exact opposite. They had two of their biggest wins this year so far against both NLL finalists. They beat Colorado. I think they beat them like 15-8 or something like that. It was crazy. And then they beat Buffalo in Buffalo, which is rare to say the least.
Yeah, they really showed that whatever momentum they had from their hot finish last season has carried over this year. They only have one loss so far. All of their offense is really clicking it to the point where sometimes it doesn't really matter how the defenses do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really impressive on their part.
Well, and speaking of which, one of their players came back. The third Thompson brother came back for this game. I know he'd had some injuries before, but I can't think of another team where multiple brothers play with each other. I mean, in any sport, to be honest.
Well, I know one of I think our backup from the first year that Panther City had a team, Orleman, he was traded to the team with his brother. But obviously, if they're both goalies, then their chances are they're not on the on the floor at the same time. But yeah, these Thompson brothers is definitely a special thing, and the fact that I think the age gap between them's not like huge, but it's wide to the point that it's impressive that they're all able to kind of share in their careers together.
Oh yeah, you can definitely tell. Like some are still in the prime of their years for lacrosse, and other ones maybe towards the end. But hey, that's not a bad thing. I mean, you talk about famous relatives or famous people playing with each other. I mean, you think of Griffey, Griffey Jr. and Griffey Sr. playing against each other. I mean, that's about as big of a gap as you can get.
Yeah, that'll be the day when we see that with lacrosse. We see like, hey, there's another Thompson. He looks kind of like his dad or uncle.
I mean, let me just say this: if Crawford plays long enough,
oh yeah,
you never know. But yeah, we'll jump right into this. There's a lot to get to on this game. We start off. We start off the game winning the opening faceoff.
Yes.
I mean, I was just like, hey, that's no matter what happens, at least for the first few minutes, that's a great start for us.
Yeah, so we'll always have that face-off win, and it was a little bit of foreshadowing in terms of what was done in the middle. But yeah. Props. I think Ronan Puch was got his first major minutes this year. So it was obviously we don't know how where Tyler Burns' health is. But yeah, Puech, you kind of wish that he had been in there for the first handful of games, just seeing how well he was doing. But
Well,
yeah, we'll get into
I'll,
that.
I'll just say this. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the next person up on the list of, hey, let's try this for a face-off. And honestly, yeah, we'll talk about throughout the game. I think he did a pretty good job. But started off the game with at least winning the face-off, so that was great. But unfortunately, a penalty by Medeiros kind of slowed us down a little bit. It gave Georgia a power play, and they get a goal, 1-0 right away.
Yeah, it's funny. I turned on the game like maybe just a minute late, and right when I turn it on, I feel like within 5 seconds I see Georgia score on debut, and so yeah, obviously you don't want to give up those power play goals, and we've been pretty decent on killing those off, but that's definitely not the way you want to start off a game.
Right. Well, and on top of that, like, that power play was things to come from the Georgia offense, at least for the first half, especially. But speaking on our half of things, I mean, I wrote this down, man. Like within the first few minutes, it just seemed like the offense again, bad passes. I don't know. I really don't know what's going on with Panther City. If people aren't clicking in that aspect, or they're not where they're supposed to be, or maybe I don't know. It just seems off.
Well, less than the Toronto game. Even though obviously the Rock deserve credit as well for their defense, Georgia's defense really came out like gangbusters against us in terms of, well, yeah, like we've used plenty of swarming puns to describe them the past few days, but yeah, just seeing how aggressive they were to the ball, either on the catch or guys that were trying to get the pass, they weren't really making anything easy, and I think that kind of rattled the guys a bit early on.
Well, yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. Georgia looked like the more physical team right at the start. They were defensively, they were pushing us around, so we couldn't get even anywhere close to the goal. And then on offense, it just seemed like they, the way they set up screens, the way they moved, the way they kind of, we tried to keep them in check, but they were definitely the more physical team. You talk about puns. I mean, that defense, they were swarming all over that field to start the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it was kind of like, oh, is this going to be a repeat of the Toronto game? However, with aggressive defense will come penalties, and so we got kind of lucky. Someone got called for cross-checking, and that put us in a man-up situation where Phil Caputo scored one of his trademark power play goals.
Man, I tell you what, it's like the man was made for power play goals. That and putback goals. That's like his main objective in lacrosse. I will always get a power play goal, and I will always get a second shot.
Yeah, and in in the bigger scheme of things, speaking about Caputo, they mentioned on the telecast that Coach TK has really kind of unlocked his offensive potential since he came to the team, because he's not exactly a spring chicken. He's no Callum Crawford, but he's what, in his late 20s or something, and he's really had a breakout, not a resurgence, but just he's really broken out and reached his full potential with the team since joining Panther City.
Well, and that goes to show you just kind of what kind of teacher Coach TK is, especially working with those with the team, working with those players one-on-one. Everybody has the potential, and he's able to find it. But yeah, speaking of which, right after that, it was also almost another goal.
Yes,
by Panther City.
So close.
But unfortunately, the foot was on the line. I mean, I tell you, I feel like that's like the fourth or fifth goal we've had called back because the foot is just like barely on the line.
Mm-hmm. And I do think Coach TK might have jumped the gun a little on that one, because it's pretty rare that we have an uncalled goal without any whistle. Did they even call the crease violation on the play?
No, yeah. Well, they weren't even sure it was even a goal. And
yeah. So I don't even remember it being a dead ball situation or a change of possession due to a whistle. And so not that losing that challenge would have changed things later on, but it seemed pretty obviously on the crease when they showed the replay.
Yeah, and unfortunately that's happened a few times, but it happens, especially in lacrosse. But so shortly after that, Georgia gets knocked for illegal substitution. It's power play for us. I thought to myself, all right, we've been really good about power plays this year. This is our chance to kind of maybe get a foot on the competition here. No, Georgia decided, hey, we don't care that you're on a power play, and we don't care that you're really good at power plays this year. We're going to kind of take over for the next few minutes. And that they did. I mean, we had a few poor shots. Georgia got a hold of the ball. A shorthanded goal by a Swarm. They go up 2-1.
Yeah, Andrew Q went. He pretty much 5-goal debut, I believe, and then, soon after that, Lyle Thompson had a bouncer of his own to get things started. So just like that, I mean, we're already in a 3-1 hole.
Yeah, I didn't know what to say. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, and you knew that Georgia did have a pretty high-powered offense, and so it's like, oh, this is like worst-case scenario. This is not how we wanted the first quarter to go.
Well, I think it made it worse because those 2 goals were shorthanded. Like, if it was 5-on-5, yeah, I get it. But the fact that we were on the power play and we were letting them do that on offense still, and then, yeah, I mean, after that, I mean, Georgia was firing on all cylinders. They get another goal, up 4-1. We weren't looking good during that stretch.
And there were a decent amount of transition opportunities, if I'm not mistaken, like guys being able to beat the defenders down the field or having more than a man against the defender. But credit to Brett Dobson, the guy in the net for Georgia. We've been hearing a lot about along with, say, Nick Rose and Del Bianco and all these other elite goalies, that he's absolutely part of the conversation. And he definitely showed that early on, and that going one-on-one with him wasn't really an advantage for us because he was so good in net.
Oh, yeah. And, again, that's kind of the disadvantage from our end because it seemed like Damu just didn't know what to do, in the goal with their offense. And so, I mean, overall, I just felt like we weren't really playing well. We weren't getting rebounds. We were allowing second shots by Georgia. They looked like the more physical team. And honestly, they looked like the better team. I mean, at the end of the first, it was 4-1. And I was just like, okay.
Yeah. And one of those, I think the play I'm thinking of actually comes later. But yeah, when you think about it, you really did see a few familiar faces on that side of the ball because they had obviously Jeremy Thompson doing some of their face-offs, and then Liam Burns too playing with Georgia now. So he had the hockey assist to Shane Jackson on that last score to put us up 4-1. So you have to think there's a little bit of an extra agenda for some of these guys that we traded away or potentially released over the years.
Right. So something that unfortunately kind of works against us, but going into the second quarter, I was like, okay, man, hopefully this is a little bit of a break. Maybe we can kind of slow things back down. And we won another face-off at the beginning of the second. Hey, at least that's going good for us.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, I was taking positives wherever I could.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, not kind of beat a dead horse, but we're not used to Panther City winning face-offs this year. Certainly not at the 2 home games we went to. So just seeing that, and then even if Pishu or whoever was in the circle wasn't able to get it immediately, we came up with a lot of the loosies afterwards. So yeah, that was absolutely a silver lining.
Well, and I think it's something that they must have talked about and worked on during that bye week because they had to figure out something, yeah, like you said, kind of beating a dead horse, but at the same time, it was something positive that we could take. But that was a great little silver lining, like you said. But Crawford, Crawford is doing Crawford things. He started to take over a little bit more. Great shot. I mean, he gets us at that point. It's 4-2. But man, 10th goal of the season already for Colin Crawford.
Yep. Who was it? What team? Was it a Vancouver player that called him washed up?
Yeah.
And since then, that seemed to light a fire fire under him, and he's been great ever since. He had a pretty good game against Georgia, which we'll continue talking about as the time goes on. But yeah, he's ageless wonder, especially when he's close to the net and looking to score.
It's just, again, I've always said this before, he just makes things look so easy and so effortlessly. Like he does it, and there's just like there's no effort to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Just makes it look easy.
Yeah. But yeah, so that at least kind of, cuts the gap a little bit. And even during that time, our offense was kind of pushing the pace a little bit more. I was like, hey, these are good things. Short-lived, but a few good things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Coach TK mentioned it when I spoke with him, but during the post-game press conference after the last game, just how we weren't necessarily getting goals in transition, but he liked what he was seeing. And I do think that aggression carried over into the Georgia game because, hey, if you've got the opportunities, you might as well take them, especially if you're still trying to find your footing in 5-on-5 offense.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, that's one of those positive things to look at because the next 5 minutes was all downhill. I mean, a breakaway goal by Georgia, which was honestly, a good goal by them. I hate to say, they went up 5-2, and then it's like a minute and a half later, another goal by them. It was 6-2 before we knew it, and it seemed like we were like all that little momentum we had the first few minutes of the second quarter disappeared quick.
Yeah, and they were scoring in a variety of ways. Like Brian Cole, the goal he scored to go up 5-2, it was a breakaway in transition. So it was a one-on-one situation, which, you can't fault Damude or any goalie for losing a matchup where you're just kind of left on an island. But soon after that, Lyle Thompson hit one from up top as well. And I think that was the one that kind of made Coach TK feel like he had seen enough out of Nick at that point in the game, because soon after that's when he subbed in Cam McLeod.
Yeah, we talked about it a few times last year, and the few times it happened last year, I didn't feel like it. I don't know. I didn't feel like it helped momentum very much. I mean, one of the games we just continued to get blown out as the game went after the change, and the other one stayed kind of even. It wasn't completely horrible, but we still lost that one. But I don't know. I just
well, with this one in particular, just based on the eye test from what had happened up to that point in the game, I thought it was a good move on Coach TK's part. Damude, it seemed like he was just gonna have an off night because Georgia was scoring in every which way, whether it be one-on-one transition opportunities, running their offense, using picks and whatnot. And so, you never like to see a goalie as good as Nick Damude get subbed out, but it gave Cam McLeod a chance to show what he was made of and hopefully try to stop some of the bleeding.
Well, and again, I will say we'll highlight him more in the second half, but it did. I think it did kind of help slow things down for a bit at least, or at least more so than maybe it could have been. But it also didn't help that during that stretch we were still playing extremely sloppy. Just again, I don't know. It seems to be the highlight, or not highlight. What's the word I'm looking for? It's the thing that's happening this year. We're just the offense just can't get on the same page for some reason.
Yeah, and I can tell reading my notes, some of the stuff I wrote down kind of just reinforces that fact. Like I wrote that Will Malcolm had a great one-handed caused turnover to stop a Georgia fast break. It didn't lead to a goal or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess one could argue that it stopped a potential goal, which at that point in the game, it's like, hey, I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, again, they were just, there's certain things they gotta kind of tighten up there, but, and then, shortly after that change, we got a penalty, power play, but kind of at a cost. That's the time when Mitchell got hurt. I don't think I saw him the rest of the game, but it was like a cross check against him, and then he had a slow time getting up. Do you remember
this? Yeah, that was when he looked kind of woozy, right? Like he had been concussed. Yeah, because you saw him like he took the hit and he retaliated some or as much as he could. But right after he did, you saw him kind of like stumble, like he didn't have his bearings. And so hopefully he's okay. I think they mentioned that they put him through the concussion protocol, but yeah, maybe they decided to play things safe after that.
Right. And that led to a power play, which again didn't really lead to anything, but it just kind of like reinforces Georgia being kind of the more physical team, even if it leads to penalties. Even after that, there was a huge fight between everybody, which led to a 5-4 advantage for Panther City. But Georgia was like physically trying to send a statement to Panther City that night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the one good thing throughout that, I don't know that Georgia got a ton of opportunities, but when they did in the middle of that second quarter, Cam McLeod did seem more active or pretty mobile in net, which I guess the way that Georgia was shooting their shots that night, that might have been to our advantage going with him.
Yeah, and I'll say this about Cam's play. One thing I noticed what he did last year was he would be way far out from the goal and then work his way in. It seemed this time like he didn't work his way out as much and stayed closer, was able to block things a little bit easier. So, again, maybe something he worked on in the offseason.
You think? Yeah. Credit to him for it's not easy when you're not getting big minutes each game. So credit to him for being able to try to get better and focus on things that he can improve on.
Well, shortly after that big fight, Rookie of the Year from last year decided to show up. He gets things going, gets a great goal. I mean, 6-3 at that point.
Yeah, it was nice to see him. The way he scored it, I actually thought it was either Malcolm or Showtime at first, just because he did the little kind of he twirled the stick a bit, had to do a few pirouettes before he snuck through. So it was nice to see him help cut the deficit some.
Well, then you go from so that happens. You go from last year's Rookie of the Year to this year's rookie, Knox. I mean, he's showing up in this game. He gets a goal, 6-4 at least. I mean, at least at that point, we're fighting back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2-goal run was nice, and they didn't show it on the replays, but I think Knox laid out a defender right before he caught the pass to score it. So it's like, oh, nice. Well, that'll definitely open up your opportunities.
Yeah. Even the broadcasters brought that up. They're like something, they weren't able to show it because the video didn't go far that back. But yeah, no, I mean, he definitely deserved that goal after pushing through. That was unfortunately probably the last highlight for the second quarter, because Georgia, it's like they flipped a switch pretty much. They said, hey, our offense is good. We know we're good. Let's do something about it. But yeah, the half was winding down. They just hit another stride. It was, I will say this, they got a goal, but this goal, the best way I can describe it is, if we had a Georgia Swarm podcast, this would be my play of the game.
Yeah.
It was Jackson.
Shane Jackson. That goal to get the first half hat trick off the outlet assist from former Panther City defenseman Liam Burns in transition. It was just like you had to ooh, that hurts, but God, that looked pretty good.
It really was. It was a great goal. And in fact, I think it was on the top 5 goals this week from the highlights from NLL. But gosh, that's one we talked about a few times last year. That's one of those goals you can't be super mad at because it was just so good.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just crazy. But that put them up 7-4, and then it just kept going downhill for us. I mean, Georgia gets another goal, 8-4. I mean, we can't even get it. It just seemed like we couldn't get anything going defensively or offensively.
Yeah, and you don't want to see that, especially having just subbed out our starting goalie. But, I mean, if there's one thing about Georgia, you can tell that when it rains, it pours with them in terms of them going on these, uncontested runs. I know we were having some trouble on Lucy's there for a bit after Shane Jackson scored again. And then Andrew Q, I think when he did it, the ball hit McLeod's shoulder at like such an angle that it kind of ricocheted into the net, which seems to be a trademark way for us to get scored on this season.
I was about to say that's kind of like our calling card this year so far.
Yeah, something about those goalie shoulder shots. So Andrew Q with a Q2, if you will.
Right. Well, and then at that point it was 8-4. There wasn't a whole lot of time left before halftime, but they got another goal, and I'm just like what is going on? I just I don't know. I started to question, why are we digressing as much as we are right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, we were down 4-1 after one, and you're like, oh, well, okay, a 3-goal deficit isn't insurmountable. Let's hope that we can, we know Georgia's a good team. Let's hope to at least keep it at that. But then finishing that first half down now 9-4, it just seems that much more impossible. I mean, not impossible, but certainly an uphill battle on the road against a high-powered offense.
Well, yeah, and an offense. I mean that halftime 9-4, and an offense that just it was just like in strides. They hit a stride in the first quarter, and then they slowed down, and then they hit another stride in the second quarter, and it's like, well, heck, at this pace, it's going to be 19-8, and we're going to be wondering what happened. But I think we've mentioned it many times. Coach TK, Tracy Kelusky, I mean, he definitely knows how to make halftime adjustments, and I think that was something he was really focused on in this game, because honestly, the second half was a different story, and we'll get into that here in a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just looking at some of these first half stats, like Brett Dobson, he saved 85% of the goals that Panther City threw at him. That like he's a great goalie, but certainly that the law of averages is going to win out, and that's going to come down a teensy bit to give us more of a chance. And then Jackson doing as well as he did, and so. But I will say the one bright spot leading up to that point was we were dominating faceoffs. Panther City won faceoffs 12-3 in that first half, and so you're like, well, if there's anything we're doing right, like maybe it's not this game where we put every single facet of box lacrosse together, but in the next one, hopefully. And hey, had another half left to play, so.
Well, it goes back to our earlier statement this year. The faceoffs are not the make or break thing, obviously.
Oh yeah, also obviously, like 12-3 on faceoffs. Ooh, what's the score?
Yeah, exactly. But again, a highlight that we can, obviously, if we didn't struggle that much before, it wouldn't have been something we'd have to talk about this time. But
right. Mm-hmm.
Definitely something that we improved on. But yeah, coming out of halftime, I mean, again, adjustments by Coach TK. But Georgia, I mean, honestly, they still seemed like the more physical team coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they still played with that same energy. We, thankfully, it seemed to play with a bit more kind of polish, certainly urgency at that point, just being down by that much. And it led to that great Tony Malcolm score in transition, where he was able to catch Dobson off guard.
Yeah, no, I mean, Tony Malcolm getting that goal 9-5. I mean, that was a great start to the second half, at least for us. Not only that, but as you mentioned, our intensity kind of heightened up. It seemed like our defense was starting to step up then too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was a stat, I think midway through the third quarter, jumping ahead a little bit, where McLeod was doing really in net. However, or quite thankfully, he didn't have a lot of there weren't a lot of shots on goal or attempts against him, which our defense was basically swarming, and our offense was getting some offensive rebounds as well. So he didn't get peppered by as many shots as he might have been, and the ones that he was faced with, he was able to stop, which was great.
Yeah, and it just, it was, like you said earlier, it was maybe a good change of pace for the defense with that switch out. But after that, Crawford again, man, I feel like every episode we're just going to talk about Crawford because this man decides to show up every game. He gets a great goal. 9-6. I mean, we're cutting it to 3. We're getting back into it.
Yeah. He's having a great season so far, and yeah, this is what his age 39. So right, this is like his LeBron,
right?
LeBron season, and also Tony Malcolm had just scored in transition, and then he's the guy that found Crawford for Showtime's goal, and so the third quarter, the way it started, it was almost like the Tony Malcolm show, which usually he's the less heralded Malcolm brother, just playing a less Hollywood position,
right?
If you will. And I think even after the assist to Crawford, he was able to draw a check from behind on one of the Georgia players to put us in a power play situation.
Yeah, well, and that, I mean, he is kind of the forgotten brother, but when Will maybe isn't playing at his best, Tony he seems pretty consistent.
Yeah, he is a very steady hand, and obviously he's a decent amount older, so he's got a lot of experience with good teams and is a good veteran presence to have.
Yeah, well, at that point, I mean, continue to talk about Crawford. Man, the man just he put the team on his back. At that point, I mean, he's just like controlling where the offense moves and everything like that. Gosh, spoiler alert, potential play of the game. But at that point, Crawford, he's like moving towards the goal, a behind the back pass that goes right in front of the goalie. And I forget who it is that actually got the shot.
Gauthier, I think.
Gauthier, was it Gauthier? Oh my gosh. Crazy goal. Cuts it to 9-7, but Crawford, man, he's just, I don't know.
Yeah, that was so incredible. I think like I'm pretty sure I clapped pretty loudly and like freaked out my dogs or something. But just seeing the ball, I don't remember if it was behind the net or in front, but I feel like it whizzed.
Yeah, it was right. It was right in front of the goalie.
Yeah, it whizzed in front of Dobson's face. And Gauthier, credit to him, because one of the most frequent scoring positions of his is where he's like right next to that side of the net, and they're able to get the defense discombobulated and scrambling enough to where he's got a clear shot, and more often than not, he converts.
Oh yeah. No, that's something. I mean, he brought over from last year. Even in that rookie season, he's shown the ability to be kind of in the right spot at the right time, and him and Crawford clicked a lot last year. I think they're probably the best. They're the best duo, at least so far, with the offense this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd actually be interested in going through all the box scores and seeing the stats for what the most common man-to-man assist to goal tandem is.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how that continues on through this year. But man, that was just crazy. And then at that point, I was like, oh hey, we're coming back. It's starting to feel like we're getting a lot of momentum going our way. A few minutes later, I'm telling you, man, that this rookie for Panther City might be more recognized than some other rookies going into the rest of the year. But Sheridan, man, he makes his presence felt. He's made his presence felt every game this year. Takes on 2 defenders, jump up over, a goal over both of them. I mean, it was great. Another goal by him, 9-8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he took that great feed from Donville and ducking through the defenseman to be able to score against, again, a great goal in Brett Dobson. It was really impressive. And just at that point, he scored with 39 seconds left in the third quarter, which in and of itself is impressive. But you think about it and you're like, wow, have we held Georgia scoreless so far this half? And you're like, oh my gosh, so we really have a chance now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a great turnaround for us from the first half to the second because, defense was playing well. We shut down Georgia, no goals allowed. I mean, it's almost like that's the way we should have started the game.
Mm-hmm.
But it took an entire half for us to get there.
Yeah, I don't know whether someone's got to get Coach TK pissed off enough before the game, so then he'll kind of light a fire into the players, or it's just happenstance. But yeah, if there's one quarter that was like, yeah, this is Panther City lacrosse, it was that third.
Oh yeah, no, I mean we definitely showed what we're able to do when everything's working the way it should. So into the third, 9-8. We started the third, and man, Caputo again. It's like he just knows. He knows where to be to get that rebound. Put back goal by him. 9-9 at that point.
Yeah. Showtime had an attempt that didn't quite make it, but Caputo, along with Gauthier, missed the right place at the right time. He was just standing literally right in front of Dobbs, and he just, I don't remember whether he catches it or scoops it up, but he grabs it. He like finds it and just like dumps it right in that. Man,
it was just the wherewithal of him to just know I need to be here. Got the rebound and in. I don't know. Again, that's why they're professional players and we're not.
Yeah.
But no, Caputo getting that goal. At that point, I was like, oh my gosh, we fought all the way back, tied 9-9. Let's finish this. Let's keep this going. Georgia, unfortunately, they had some other plans. A few minutes later, they fought back, got a quick goal, 10-9 at that point. Still not out of reach, but they finally scored a goal in the second half, which was, I think, kind of a turning point for them.
That was a tough one to see. Mike. I think Shane Jackson hit Mike Manley in transition to get that lead back, and it just kind of goes to show how vital transition scoring opportunities are to either bolster or in some cases make up for the offense when it's just not clicking in regular 5-on-5. Because McLeod, he had an absolutely amazing third quarter, and to give that goal up, or for that goal to be the one to stop the bleeding, it's like, oh well, that kind of sucks, but just got to get your head in the right place and keep playing strong.
Well, yeah, and we didn't expect a complete shutout in the second half. We knew Georgia would, eventually. Yeah,
that would have been amazing.
that would have been the complete comeback. No goals allowed in the second half, but Georgia's offense is just too strong to be able to keep them to no goals like that. But after that, I mean, honestly, both teams were fighting back and forth, and then both defenses for I want to say 3 or 4 minutes there. It's just, nothing for the offensive, either Georgia or us was going good, but that's because the defenses were playing really good then.
Yeah, we even went up on was it a 4-minute power play?
Yeah, I think so. 4-2 or something like that.
Yeah. It was, so, we were on power play for a good chunk of time, but just weren't able to convert. And so maybe with how well Panther City did in that third quarter, kind of woke Georgia up. Like, okay, let's put these guys away.
Yeah. Well, at that point, it didn't wake him up enough because again, Crawford, man, like I can't wait to get to your stats because I'm sure he broke like half of them during this game. But man, I mean, Crawford again, 10-10. At that point, there was only a little over 4 minutes left. We had a really good chance then.
Yeah. It was nice to see. It was almost a mirror image of what Georgia had done in the first quarter, scoring those man down goals. Because we're like, I guess Crawford said, anything you can do, I can do better, and he was able to get one despite the penalty that Sheridan got. And so for us to tie it back up that way, and with less than 4.5 minutes left, it was just like, you knew we were in for a nail biter. And even leading up to that point, I think Panther City was winning the Lucy battle 65-54, which was pretty good considering I think Georgia had a slight advantage after the first half. And then McLeod had, we didn't go into this, but McLeod had a great transition save against McIntosh where it could have been a repeat of the Shane Jackson goal from Mike Manley earlier. Right? So for him to be able to get that was really, really impressive. And you're like, okay, good. He's given us as much of a chance as he can in that.
Yeah, and honestly, again, even though he gave up some goals in the second quarter, Cam played really good that second half. I mean, you really can't ask much more from, especially a backup like that. That was a great showing by him, and so something he can kind of hang his hat on with that. But again, there are certain players I think that are going to be showing up a lot in stats across the NLL this year, and Jackson is one of them. He had himself a night. He gets another goal. That's a sock trick for him. That's 6 goals for him, man.
Yeah, and it's funny because looking ahead to this game, I think maybe I had a bit too much tunnel vision on Lyle Thompson.
On the Thompson, yeah.
Because he's been featured a lot, obviously, as one of their star players. And then maybe just as a Panther City fan, the Thompson brothers in general, but with knowing that Jeremy's there and knowing our struggles in face-offs this year. But yeah, so Jackson getting that sock trick against us, he was really... They had a ton of players that played well, but he was really the engine that made things go on offense.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you know, that just kind of shows you how many working pieces Georgia has that they got going on this year. So, I mean, at that point, it was 11-10. We were trying to keep it close. I think at one point we kind of pulled Cam just to try to get, because there was even like a power play at some point, and we tried to pull him to try to keep things even. But again, you mentioned Lyle Thompson. There's a focus on him for a reason. He got another goal with a few minutes left, 12-10. Georgia, at that point, Georgia was starting to kind of control the last few minutes of the game.
Yeah, at that point, you know, you get kind of in desperation mode just out of necessity. And so, yeah, unfortunately, the shots they were getting at that point weren't of the best quality, and you know, you probably start to rush and whatnot. And yeah, just I know it was funny kind of seeing, like, we see with Daymute every now and then too, just McLeod having to run back and forth from that, like, oh shoot, now the ball's all coming right back. So yeah, so it was a tough way to finish it, but I did like to see the fight that the team had in them in that second half.
Yeah. I mean, my last notes here for the game was, you know, Georgia survived the comeback. You want to talk about survival mode from a team, that was what they did at the end of that game, because just everything was kind of going our way. And I don't know, it maybe we ran out of steam a little bit, but they survived. We came out with a loss, but it was a loss you can take some positives from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and foreshadowing, we're not the only people that thought that way.
Yeah, right, exactly. But yeah, final 12-10. I even posted on our social media, you know, the comeback unfortunately came up short. Some good things, you know, we obviously won some face-offs. Our defense played good in the second half, but there's still a lot of stuff we need to work on, especially going forward if we hope to contend in the playoffs. I mean, I put this in the notes. If the game was the second half only, we did great. We did amazing. But unfortunately, that's why you have two halves.
Yep. It's a 60-minute game, and each quarter, I mean, if you have one really bad quarter, which I'd venture to say Panther City did with that second quarter, then your other 3 quarters have to be really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not saying like the first quarter was that much better, but again, yeah, the other 3, first, third, and fourth quarters were probably the best, you know, that we had that night. And so, unfortunately, you know, we left with a loss, and that puts us in a odd position of 1-3 after 4 games, and again, just not a position I thought we'd be in at this point of the season. But, well, this game had a ton of highlights. It also had a ton of stats. This is, of course, Mr. Andrew's stats of the game. Mr. Andrew, I'm looking forward to this one. What stats do you have for us for this one?
Well, I'll start out with some good stuff. Well, maybe it should be like I'll give you bad news and good news, you know.
Right.
The bad news is that Nick Daymute got pulled pretty early. what it was, maybe less than midway through the second quarter. And at that point, he had saved 12 out of 18 shots, which, the two-thirds. Unfortunately, that's you're not really going to have much success with that. And I think that's why Coach TK made the decision he did. But Cam McLeod in relief, saving 23 of 29 when he played out there, shade under 80%. It was pretty solid, and it certainly helps the almost comeback that we had that game. On the other side, Brett Dobson, hats off to him. He saved 40 out of 58 for an 82% save percentage. So they were certainly clicking in net. And Shane Jackson, he had 10 points, 6 goals total for the sock trick, and then 4 assists to boot on top of that. And so, yeah, you can see why Georgia's this kind of. You can see why they're doing as well as they are this season. I don't believe they did especially well Panther City's inaugural year, and then last year they really weren't in the playoff race until like the last couple of weeks of the season. And so they're not a team that really, at least for me personally, would come to mind as like, oh, they're going to be tough, or they're one of the best teams in the league. But from what I've seen of them so far, it certainly seems like they belong in that conversation. So, hats off to their team. The one thing that we did clip them on, just by a teensy bit, was face-offs. We won a majority of them, 14 out of 26. I don't know if Ronan Puch took every single face-off, but for the ones that he was in there, he did do a really good job. And it was nice to see us be more competitive in there from the get-go, because the more offensive opportunities you get, the more repetition you get on that side of the ball. And so eventually things start clicking and guys start gelling with each other. The chemistry improves. And so that's kind of how I'm interpreting the face-off success. So I think, I don't know what the plans are going forward, but I think that should definitely help us. And then the last thing, it's not really a stat, but one thing that I did notice is our captain, Matt Hossack, didn't play. And so you think of the kind of offense that Georgia has, someone like Hossack. Haas definitely would have helped. I don't know whether the outcome would have been any different, but I think we certainly missed him out there. And then with Mitchell going out or getting roughed up with that concussion, it was definitely tough sledding on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you, just there's certain players that could make that little bit of extra difference. I mean, that comeback was so close. It might have been different with a couple other players in there. Well, and touching back on the face-offs real quick, I feel like it's a momentum thing sometimes too. If you're constantly losing face-offs, then you're gonna feel like, oh well, we can't get anything going to save our life. But at least in this one, like I said, even though we were slightly ahead in it, like it made us feel like we were competitive, and gave us maybe that mental edge to keep things a little bit on the positive side. I guess you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you think about how successful like Mehdi and Tony Malcolm or the offensive guys coming right off the bench were after Burton or whoever was in the dot was giving us early offensive opportunities. You have to think that there's some correlation between how well we did with that last year and how well guys like Josh Medeiros were playing, how much they were scoring compared to this year. And so from that vantage point, I think it'd be a good idea to have Puch continue taking those rather than do that face-off by committee system that we started the season with. But we'll see what the coaching staff decides to do.
Yeah, I honestly think that judging by how we played in this game, I think that's probably the right decision for now. I mean, until people get healed back up and we can make changes that way. But of course, that was Mr. Andrews' stats of the game. That leads us, I mean, there are a few contenders, but it is, of course, our cool cat plays of the game. Look, as much as I want to hail Sheridan for that great goal by him, pushing off those two defenders, there's only one. And again, he made it in the top 5 plays of the NLL this week. It's Crawford. I mean, the man is crazy. Passing a ball right in front of the goalie. I don't even know how to describe that. Having the
cojones.
stuff, yeah, the cojones to be able to do that right off the bat is enough to shy most people away from even trying. But he did it behind the back, and leading to a Gauthier goal. I mean, it was just crazy. So, I mean, even though Gauthier got the goal, it was the assist and the goal that just made that play crazy to watch. So that's my play of the game. What about for yourself?
I got to give plaudits to Phil Caputo's put back right in front, because I think that was the one that tied things back up for us. You mentioned Sheridan. He had that great goal as well. There were some really good defensive plays. McLeod had that good save. However, I got to go with Showtime to go as well for that behind the back pass, because that's one of the ones that kind of your jaw drops a little. You're like, ooh, and Callum Crawford has certainly earned his nickname throughout his illustrious career, and he's one of those guys that you see that you're like, man, that was an awesome play, and man, I'm glad I have those guys on my team.
Right.
So yeah, props to them for making that connection.
No, I mean, yeah, and of course that's our cool cat plays of the game. I will say this about Crawford: the more you watch him, the more you watch his style. He is very good about hanging the ball up top and just making you think, okay, he's either going to pass it regular, he's either going to pass it behind his back, or he's going to shoot. The problem is all 3 of those look exactly the same.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You just never know whether you're going to get a shot, a pass, or God, who knows what out of him.
Which I mean makes him almost impossible to defend, because especially 1-on-1. If you're 1-on-1, you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and one other thing, not related to show, well, kind of vaguely related to Showtime. I don't think I wrote a note down on this, but Ryan Sheridan had another one of those would-be like highlight reel attempts. I don't remember exactly I don't think it was like an under the leg thing like he did in the first game, but there was another one of those, and I'm looking forward to when he starts converting those.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure he's gonna start I mean, he already had a contender for play of the game tonight, but I'm pretty sure he's gonna have a lot more in contention going forward.
When he actually gets that, between the legs kind of shot at some point, that's going to be that play of the game. Well, again, even in a loss, as we talked about before, we do have some big cat players of the game. I'll let you start us off. Who's your big cat player of this game?
I probably took a bit of the easy way out again, and I'm highlighting guys at all the different positions. I thought Phil Caputo did what he always does, providing that steady hand. He had the one trademark car play goal and the one, oh hey look, a lacrosse ball in my stick, kind of trademark right place at the right time goal. So he had that. He had a couple of loosies, and he kind of was, since the team's been around, he's definitely been one of kind of the offensive enforcers that kind of helps out when the younger guys are getting pushed around. I thought he did great with that. Tony Malcolm really helped spur that second half comeback with his play, with the goal, the assist to Showtime. He had 9 loosies and 2 caused turnovers, which was awesome as well. Probably the 2 guys that really stick out in my head are Ronan Puech in the dot, with how well he did on face-offs, and playing solid defense as well throughout. So Puech and Showtime, Callum Crawford. We only put up 10 points. Crawford was directly or indirectly responsible for 8 of those through through his scoring. He scored 3 goals, and then he had 5 assists on top of that. 7 loosies as well. Turnover count was a little high, but you kind of expect that when you're facing a defense as aggressive as Georgia's was playing that night. Plus, just having the ball in your stick a lot of the time, just trying to get those possessions and those scores. So, those were Phil Caputo, Tony Malcolm, Ronan Puch, and Crawford were my one player of the game.
Right. That they're all like, if you could combine them into one player, that's the one player of the game. No, I mean, you're right. There are a lot of. It just seemed like there was a lot of contributors. Obviously, the one that gets the most attention is, of course, Callum Crawford. I mean, I would say that, but I'm gonna have, and even like Sheridan, I would even say he's in contention for my big cat player of the game. But I'm gonna say, and I hate to say it because Dave Moone's my man, but Cam McLeod, man, he stepped up when he was asked to step up. I mean, you can't ask any more than what he did. Sure, he gave up some early goals in that second quarter, coming out pretty much cold from the bench. It does make me think like how much time they have to warm up.
Yeah, seriously, because normally they're out there just probably trying to make sure that substitutions aren't illegal or called for penalties and whatnot.
Right. And next thing you know, he's out in action. So I can't fault him for that. But man, that second half, he did pretty much everything you could ask for him to do. And so, Cam McLeod, you're my big cat player of the game. Man, I really want to leave this game behind, but final thoughts on the game. I mean, what are your final thoughts on the game against Georgia?
There's no such thing as a good loss in the standings, but in some ways this was a good loss, more so than the loss against Toronto or the loss against certainly the loss against Las Vegas, because we know Georgia's a great team. We don't really play them a whole lot just because of how the divisions used to work. Just the fact that we ended up in a hole, yes, that Panther City dug themselves into, but they are basically able to crawl back out of that and give themselves an opportunity to win in that fourth quarter. Really, really good grit by the guys. Like you said, a really good job by Cam McLeod substituting in for Damude. It's obviously the loss is disappointing, but oddly enough, in some ways there were more positives than negatives that I took from this game. The negatives, when they happened, they were like pretty glaring and whatnot, but the positives that there were, whether it be the face-offs, the comeback, the not allowing any goals in that third quarter, there were so many things that were done right that you're like, okay, mark all these things off and stretch it out over a 60-minute game, and you are guaranteed to have success.
Yeah, I mean, same thing here. It almost feels like, I wrote this in my notes, these first 4 games almost feels like the inaugural season all over again. And I say that both in a positive way and a negative way. The first season, we didn't start getting good until the second half of the season, which is something I hope we can kind of get going here soon. But it just, things weren't clicking and people were still figuring out stuff at the beginning of the year. And it just, as I've said the last few games, fighting back was good. And I'm glad that we were able to get back in this game. But sloppy play, especially like what we had in the second quarter, I mean, that's going to continue to lead to losses, especially against good teams. And it's something I hope I hope we can turn it around sooner rather than later, because that's going to kill us, especially towards the end of the year. And if we make the playoffs at this point, that's something that's going to kill us in the playoffs. That's what killed us last year. I mean, there were so many wins last year that kind of slipped through the fingers because, we either messed up just that one time or messed up just that, a few times against really good teams, and they took advantage. And we can't continue to do that as this year goes on.
Yeah, hopefully, I mean, with the early 5-goal deficit, you'd hope that. Plus, what was this off of bye week? Oh yeah, because we
already had 2 week bye weeks for some reason.
New Year's, so I'm hoping that having such a close game going into what's going to be, well, I guess the first game as part of a long road trip is going to at least give the team some continuity and things where they won't be like, okay, this is what we want to do. All right, see y'all in 2 weeks. Hopefully it does provide them continuity going into New York and the rest of the slate.
Yeah, and I hope that's, now that we're getting into the stretch of pretty much a game a week for a while, yeah, I kind of hope this is the opportunity they need to get things clicking. Well, we leave Georgia in Georgia to continue to raid the NLL and be really good this year for some reason. And then we look ahead to this weekend. Panther City is definitely looking for a turnaround game against the team that they had their first ever win as an organization against in the New York Riptide this Saturday night. Same place too. I mean, we got the win, our first win away. We're back in New York, so I don't know. This is looking to be an interesting matchup for us.
Very interesting. I mean, New York, I don't know whether it's better or worse that they finally got their first win last week against Philadelphia. In Philly, Jeff Teat had one of his big games as he's wanted to do. But yeah, it's interesting because we both got the same record. Something's got to break, basically. Someone's got to win.
Well, yeah. I mean, and both of us have had similar paths. Like, they had a tough game against Toronto. We had a tough game against Toronto. And yeah, both sitting at 1-3, it's like, who's going to take advantage right now?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's funny, had they lost to Philadelphia, I don't know it makes me wonder whether they'd be hungrier and more desperate against us and play a better game. Or now that they've tasted victory, they're like, oh, we like this. Now let's get one in front of our home fans and try to make something happen there. So, yeah, it's funny because had we won the game against Georgia,
Vegas.
Well, yeah, Vegas as well. Had we been going into this game like 500 or either 500 from the Vegas game or from this past game against Georgia, you think, all right, it's New York, just take care of business, we'll be all right. But now you're like, oh gosh, I don't know to be like, oh man, we can't lose to these guys. But then there's a little bit of certainly not desperation, but absolutely urgency. You don't want this season to go a ride too far down the road. Granted, Georgia kind of showed the blueprint of that. Hey, it's never too late to be competitive, but it certainly helps to get those wins early.
Well, and I'll say this. I mean, you kind of touched on it. We are technically, I think, the better team in this scenario. But that being said, somebody we have to keep an eye on and have to find a way to contain. Yeah, you mentioned him already, Jeff Teat. If he gets on a roll like Jackson had this game, or something like that, that's going to be a tough hill for us to get back out of because he's somebody who, again, he can hit a stride, and next thing you know, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking at the box score from their win against Philadelphia, it's like Teat, assist Teat, all over the place. Callum had a good game against Georgia with 8 points. Teat had 9 points against Philly. and he had 18 shots on goal, which is like, even if not everyone's going in, you're like, gosh, this guy has the eternal green light, and if enough of them go in, we could be in trouble.
So they're pretty much the New York Jeff Teats.
the Jeff Teat Riptide.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a reason why he's one of the top players the last few years. I mean, he's just that big of an impact. Even though the team hasn't reflected in the wins, like he's still a big player we need to keep an eye on. Another thing we need to keep an eye on, what's going to happen in the goalie situation. I mean, Damon needs a good comeback game, but is it one of those things where, hey, if he doesn't start off good, does Cam come back in? Does Cam start? I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough to think about because it's not like Damute's played poorly this season, except for that not even an entire half against Georgia. So, yeah, Coach TK and Toll and Gowns definitely had their decisions cut out from them. Speaking more about the Riptide and Panther City contrast, it is interesting because the Riptide's a pretty new team as well. However, we've somehow managed to have more success early on than they did. Like even our inaugural year being in the playoff hunt late, and then last year making the playoffs. Whereas New York still hasn't gotten to that. Don't know if this will be the year where they'll finally do that. Obviously, we want to get back there, but with Coach TK and Showtime and the veterans wanting to kind of cap off some great lacrosse careers with wins, Riptide should honestly just be viewed as another obstacle rather than a feel-good story that you want to be a part of.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of things to look out for coming into this game. I mentioned this before the podcast, so I listen to a lot of football podcasts during the NFL season, but something one of them does is they do a segment called Show Me Something. They find either a player or an aspect of the team, and they pretty much call them out and says, hey, show me something. So real quick, show me something, Jason Knox, from me. That's what I want. Show me something, Jason Knox. You were a high touted, very much hyped around rookie, and you have been there, but I feel like there's another rookie that's maybe taken the spotlight away, and you might have gotten things going in this last game, but I'm ready for you to show up this year. So for me, show me something, Jason Knox. What about for yourself?
For me, I would have to go with my favorite player on the team, Josh Medeiros. He's just, after the success he had last year, just something doesn't seem right. Whether it's just unlucky bounces or where he is physically or mentally, I'm not too sure. But he's certainly not having the impact, certainly with goals that one would have expected from after his breakout year last season. So I'd love to see him get that turnaround against the Riptide. And not saying the Riptide's the perfect team to do that against, but I know it's not Brett Dobson or Nick Rose in net, and so hopefully he's got his legs under him. Hopefully his mind's right and he's in a good place. But yeah, I'd love to see Medi kind of kickstart his season, give the kick in the butt it needs and start playing some great lacrosse for us.
Oh yeah. He's definitely somebody I'm waiting for him to pick up from last year. Well, we look at New York Riptide expectations for me. This is a game that we A, need to win, and B, we should win. Short and sweet. That's literally what it is. I'm expecting a win. If I was to take a guess at the score, man, our offense has just had such a hard time getting things going, and I really hope that things turn around, but I don't see it happening yet. I see this, unfortunately, being a close game. I would say we win, but it's a 10-8. What about for yourself?
I unfortunately haven't kept up with some of the other teams as much as I should. From what I remember, Philadelphia had at least one major injury earlier this year. I could be wrong, but knowing that and knowing that on the offensive side of the ball, all of our guys seem in pretty good shape and healthy. I'm expecting us to be able to score more than the 9 that Philly did last week. So I'm a bit more kind of irrationally optimistic and thinking that we're going to win by a margin of 13-9.
Nice. Actually, you've been really good about predictions this year. You predicted the loss against Georgia. You predicted yeah. You were the negative one against Georgia. I was the optimist.
Well, at the same time, I predicted 2 wins against Toronto and Las Vegas. We won't count the Las Vegas one. That's overtime, but
yeah.
Yeah,
but you were closer on the scores for them, so
that's true.
You've been hitting pretty good this year.
Yeah, if I don't get the actual outcome out, I'll at least get the margin,
right?
The spread or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, gamble with the spread, not the winner.
Right.
But yeah, so obviously we look forward to this weekend's game against New York. I will say personally, I'm looking forward to it because my Houston Texans play at 3:30, and then Panther City plays at 6:30. So if certain dice rolls my way, I might have a really good Saturday. But we obviously talk a lot about Panther City. I did want to touch on a few other quick things. First of all, quick just initial reaction. Let's talk about real quick the surprise that is the Albany Firewolves, and they just beat Halifax, which was a team that even the NLL came out and said, "Hey, who's going to beat them? Who's going to beat Albany?" And everybody thought Halifax was going to beat them. They just beat them. They're undefeated so far this year. It's crazy because that team just did not do anything last year, and now here they are undefeated.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I actually ended up having to skip the game last year. And, I wouldn't have been able to make our game against Albany, but unfortunately wasn't super motivated to make it just because of my prior engagement.
Yeah.
And them not having that great a year. So I don't know that anyone except for Albany themselves really expected their season to go the way it is. I know they've got friend of the podcast and former Panther City player Nathan Brennan. He had a pretty good.
He had a really good goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so nice to see his success, and he's the kind of guy that can help bring together a locker room just with his enthusiasm and everything. They've got kind of like what we had with Donville. They've got a really good rookie this year. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but I think at this point he's a presumptive rookie of the year. We'll see how it goes. Alex Simmons. Yeah, so it's awesome to see them doing well, and it's Panther City's a pretty young team, so we haven't really kept up with the NLL for an extended period of time, but it is cool just seeing like a team from the bottom of the standings having the amount of success that they are this year, certainly early on. So hats off to them. It's crazy seeing them ahead of teams like the Seals, the Nighthawks, the Rock even. Granted, the Rock haven't played a whole lot of games. The Bandits, the defending champs.
I was about to say Bandits and Colorado are both just, I don't know what's happening with this.
Yeah. I mean, in this new unified standing system, I'll take it.
Yeah,
because it gives us a better shot. But
it kind of goes to show you how crazy this season's going to be so far.
Is it?
I just quick, like I said, just a quick note on that. I mean, good job for Albany. I'm going to hate when we go against them later on this year. But the other thing I want to talk about, the NLL Power Rankings came out today. The NLL Power Rankings. And at number 8, Panther City. A 1-3 team ranked number 8. And I read it, and I understand the reasoning. I guess I was just shocked. You never really see that in a power ranking where a team has one win and has an overtime loss, a tough loss against Toronto, and a tough loss against Georgia, and they're ranked number 8. I don't know. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I would, if they didn't give it to us after we had the opening season win against Vancouver, I certainly didn't think they would have it to us after a 3-game losing streak, two of which were at home. But just going down the standings, let's take a look. Okay, number 1, Albany, 5 wins, 0 losses. Number 2, Toronto Rock, also undefeated in 3 games. Number 3, familiar foe, Georgia. Number 4, Rochester. Number 5, San Diego. And then you get into the 2-2 teams. 6, Halifax. 7, Buffalo. And then Philadelphia starts out the under 500 teams at 2-3. So right there, that's at least, let's see, between Philadelphia, Calgary, Saskatchewan, there's a lot of, okay, that's interesting. So no team in the league has not won a single game so far. But it is still very surprising that we would be ranked over some of these other teams with similar records, but I guess that's just the way the cookie's been crumbling so far.
Well, and even the article touched on it. Like, the main reason they put us at number 8 was, we're one goal, we're a few seconds away from being 2-2 with that Vegas, getting the goal in the last few seconds, forcing overtime, and then losing. A hard-fought match against Georgia, who is obviously a higher tier, team. I understand the reasoning. I don't know. I was off put by it, I guess, because I definitely didn't expect Panther City to be ranked anywhere right now, because at 1-3, you usually don't hear a lot about those lower teams.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, I don't know. Did we? Oh yeah. We definitely made the rankings last year every now and then. There were a lot of on the bubble weeks for sure. But yeah, I do like how they kind of issued a challenge to Panther City as well by saying they have a chance to prove they are in the spot by going out to Long Island and beating the Riptide. Because like they said, in some alternate universe where things go right against Vegas and we finish the comeback against Georgia, we're a 3-1 squad. So,
right.
It's shocking that we were in there, but I like the attitude and I don't know if you'd call it optimism, but kind of the nuance involved with ranking us at number 8. Like, we're more than what our record shows right now.
Yeah. Well, and that just shows, honestly, it shows the league knows we're on our way to hopefully getting things right. We're going in an upward trajectory. Even though we have 3 losses, it's losses against good teams and a few seconds off, of overtime. So yeah, it was crazy for me to see that. That I just want to touch on that real quick. But as we look ahead, New York is on the horizon. Hopefully we can kind of get that win, get back on track with everything, and kind of get the season going where we expect it to go. As always, we want to thank everybody. Thank you for listening. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, and YouTube. Once again, I'm Nicholas.
And I'm Andy.
And hopefully we'll see you after this win up in New York. But we'll see you all next time.
Sweet. Cheers, y'all.
Cool.